Welcome everyone to RRS's webinar on partnerships in the community for recycling. Thanks to all of you for joining us today for the first webinar in the summer series by our initiative Renew. And today we have some great speakers talking about their experiences partnering with industry initiatives to expand their community's recycling programs. And so before we dive in, a couple technical details. You can hear us, but we can't hear you. We've muted you all to keep background noise to a minimum. However, we do want to hear from you. If you have any concerns or issues, please use your chat box over to the right. And we encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar through the Q&A feature in your menu over there on the right. And we'll address those questions in the last portion of the webinar. And lastly, a recording of this webinar will be available online in the next few days. And so with that, I'll hand things over to our moderator, Marissa.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining. My name is Marissa Adler, and I'm a senior consultant with Resource Recycling Systems, and really happy to be providing this webinar today, brought to you by Renew, which is one of the initiatives of RRS. And you can go to the next slide. To start, I thought I would just do a brief overview of our last webinar series. It occurred in the fall of 2017, and it was a 4-part webinar series that can be viewed by going to renew-recycling.org. We had 4 different webinars. The first one, we talked about building and protecting access to recycling, more specifically establishing collection programs for things like cartons, food service packaging items, and glass. The second webinar centered on partnerships with schools, businesses, and institutions. We highlighted programs that recover cartons in schools, rigid plastic packaging from grocery stores, and glass bottles from bars and restaurants. The third webinar was about industry problem solving, and we featured several industry programs that are addressing important challenges. One of the ones that we featured was a waste exchange program, an online waste exchange, industrial waste exchange program put together by the U.S. Sustainable Business Council, Rewall, which is an innovative building product made with old cartons, and the American Chemistry Council's WRAP program, which recovers plastic film and wrap from grocery stores. And finally, in the fourth webinar, we talked about partnerships between industries and municipalities that improve recycling programs through implementing best practices. Speakers talked about contamination management and utilizing curbside carts, best practices for away-from-home recycling, and resources for supportive local policy. So I definitely encourage you to visit the website and listen to those webinars for lots of great information. And today is the first webinar in our 2018 summer webinar series. Today's topic is about partnerships in the community for recycling, and we have a few great speakers lined up. And then we are also planning a webinar at the end of July for MRF to market, talking about sort of how materials move once they are recovered in the MRF and how they move to market. We can go ahead to the next slide. And again, today our speakers are Kristen Wheeland from Kent County, the Kent County DPW, Karen Maynard, Metro DPW, Louisville, Kentucky, and RRS's Jim Fry. And then, so we will go through the speakers as the speakers are giving their presentations, and you have a question, please send all of your questions through the questions feature, as Laura mentioned, on your menu. And we'll be compiling all the questions and addressing them all at the end. Again, this is just putting faces to names. Moderating is myself, Marissa Adler. We have Karen Maynard from the Metro DPW in Louisville, Kristen Wheeland from Kent County, Michigan, and Jim Fry. And with that, we move into Kristen's presentation. And Kristen Wheelan has served the Kent County Department of Public Works in several capacities over the last 13 years as a resource recovery specialist, specialist doing boots on the ground outreach, as a resource and recovery and recycling manager, overseeing operations of Kent County Recycling and Education Center, and currently serves as communications and marketing manager, overseeing outreach and education and maintaining stakeholder communications. In her current role, she's tasked with developing and championing programs and services that will help Kent County achieve 20% reduction in materials destined for landfill by 2020 and a 90% reduction by 2030. So with that, I will hand it over to Kristen.
Thank you, Marissa. I'm pleased to be here to share Kent County's experience introducing a new material into our recycling stream at our single stream recycling facility. And I'll be talking about really how carton recycling was an investment and continues to be an investment for us in our long-term vision. Next slide, please. So in about 15 minutes, in a pretty short amount of time, I wanted to cover why Kent County invested in carton recycling equipment when in reality, cartons really only comprise a pretty small fraction of what's actually being processed through our facility and in the waste stream. And also talk about what's happened since making this change. And it's been a very recent change. Just in December of this last year, did we introduce the addition of carton recycling. Next slide. So I felt like it was important to share with you a little bit about our community just for some reference so that maybe you can find similarities in your own communities. Kent County, and stepping back, if you've ever spoken to someone from Michigan and asked them where they live in Michigan, they always use their hands. So I felt it appropriate to use this photo to show you where Grand Rapids is. So Kent County is the county that Grand Rapids is the seat of. So Grand Rapids is that red star on the hand in the palm area. And Kent County has a population of over 640,000 now, primarily in 6 urban cities sort of surrounding Grand Rapids. We have a really interesting mixture of agriculture, suburban and urban community members. So it's a very dynamic community. And the waste and recycling collection is provided by private waste haulers primarily, and we do have a single municipal hauler, but Kent County as an organization does not provide any of the hauling. It's all done by primarily the private waste haulers and the municipal haulers, the city of Grand Rapids. So Kent County is the processor of the materials. We are not the hauler. All of the recycling and waste collection is hired by residents. There are no requirements that residents use any specific hauler, even in the city of Grand Rapids where the municipal hauler is located. And it's a free market system. So people have free choice of who they choose for their hauler. And again, there is also no requirement that haulers provide recycling on any sort of wide scale. Next slide. So in Kent County, we have an integrated solid waste system, and we have four significant pieces of infrastructure that make up the facilities for that solid waste system. The first being our single stream recycling facility, and that's in the city of Grand Rapids. We accept recyclables from a 10-county region, and our 2018 goal is to process 40,000 tons of recyclables. That's sort of our flagship facility. We also own and operate a landfill and a transfer station, as well as own and contract out the operation of a waste to energy facility. So we're fortunate to have a really good mixture of capabilities to process and receive municipal solid waste, recycling, and other ancillary programs that help us develop this integrated solid waste system. And again, all of these are owned and operated by Kent County. The waste to energy facility is owned and contractor operated. Next slide. So in our community, in the facility that we operate in Kent County, and we do accept the majority of recyclables from the region, considering that we receive material from a 10-county area. We recycle the majority of things that most other communities do, with a couple of exceptions that I wanted to highlight. Cardboard, we do accept glass, both colored and clear glass. Plastics 1 through 7, paper, and I know this will be shocking, but we do tell people that we recycle bags at our facility. It's something that we started around 2008 before we went to single stream recycling. And as many of you know, and most of you know, that once you tell people you can recycle something, you can't take it back. So the bags are continue to be accepted for recycling, though we're really continuing to push people to use retail operations and retail outlets for bags for the highest and best use. We recycle metal cans, and as of December of 2017, we also recycle cartons. And the image that you see on the right side of the screen is the outreach piece that we use to explain this to people. Next slide. So going back to why Kent County invested in carton recycling when in reality it's just a small percentage of our waste stream, there's 3 main things that drove us to this decision. The first is our long-range vision, which I'll share that about. The second is that just the addition of something new into your recycling stream can have so many other trickle-down benefits as far as communication and just generating excitement for recycling, and so I'll talk a bit about that. And then being the owner and operator of the facility, we were experiencing some increasing staffing costs that helped us make this decision, so I'll talk a bit about that. Next slide. So I'll draw your attention to the blue line on this chart. This is our tonnage at our South Kent landfill, which is the landfill that we own and operate, and specifically looking at between 2012 and 2013, you can see that line is just climbing up continuously, and so that's a bit alarming for us. And I think what we're seeing is similar to what other communities and other landfills are seeing. And so we really felt like we needed to do something to change the dynamics of our community and how we're disposing of waste and how we're managing it, because landfilling at this rate is not sustainable. So this is sort of the underpinning of our vision that we carry on now and into the near future. Next slide. So for a little bit of perspective, for those of you who are familiar with University of Michigan, the Big House is their football stadium, and we've been able to figure out that just the amount of trash that is coming from Kent County alone in one single year would fill the Big House with trash full 2 times. And so that, just knowing that and seeing that is great motivation for us to be really innovative in our thinking and think differently about how we've approached waste in the past, and not settle for status quo as far as what we've done in the past to manage the waste. So we really are opening up many, many doors to help us solve this problem of so much waste going into our landfill. Next slide. And that leads us to our vision, which is the 20% reduction in landfill waste by 2020 and a 90% reduction by 2030. Then these are very aggressive goals, and 2020 is knocking on our door. So we cannot make improvements quickly enough to get to our goals, but it just speaks to the importance of addressing even very small amounts of what's currently in our waste stream to begin to make incremental changes and incremental, to show an incremental difference in what we're sending to our landfill. So this is the basic underpinning of all of the decisions that we're making going forward in our department. Next slide. So the decision to introduce carton recycling into the mix of what's recyclable in our area for our facility was not a quick one. It took us a couple of years of back and forth discussion, and we had a few people in transition within our department. So this was not something that was a spur of the moment decision. We really thought about how it would impact us and how it would be best to implement it. But ultimately, we decided to move forward and implement carton recycling, getting carton sorting equipment. And I guess I'll back up and explain that by cartons, I mean the aseptic packaging, the milk cartons, juice boxes, the boxes of soup that show up so often on the grocery store shelves that we see as an expanding packaging type. It will only grow from here, the application of it. So we instituted that in December of 2017, and it meant that we had to shut down our facility for about 3 weeks while we installed this equipment, as well as a couple of other pieces of equipment that it was just time to replace in our facility, which was almost over 8 years old by then. So we took that opportunity to renew the excitement about carton to renew the excitement about recycling in all kinds of crazy different ways. So this is a float that we had at our Santa parade, and it was really our first announcement that carton recycling was coming, and we didn't even accept them yet. It was about 3 weeks before we started actually accepting cartons and before our facility was even up and running, but it was important to us to get the word out and get people excited about it and not be distracted by the fact that our facility was shut down because of this introduction, but look forward to something. So these cartons are on a trailer. Those are my children that were very excited about it, and it allows us to work with a local water company to hand out boxed water. We got excitement from our staff. There was social media and TV coverage that was really great, and it put a positive spin on that 3-week shutdown to make people look forward to what was to come when we reopened. Next slide. This was one of the social media pieces that we put out on our Facebook page, and we also shared it with the waste haulers. So going back to sort of how we operate in Kent County, the county again is the processor, we're not the hauler. So we rely on our private haulers who are customers of ours to help us spread the message about changes to what's recyclable and to help us convey messages to their customers. So we shared this with haulers. We provided files for them to print cart hangers and also bill stuffers for anyone who's using mailable bills to put in their bills so that they could help us convey the message. Next slide. The second piece of that renewed excitement is that the addition of carton recycling impacts schools so much that this really opened up opportunities for us to work with local schools. In the lunchroom, at a single school district of ours, the biggest one in our area, they have 52 schools, and they were going through and continue to go through 17,000 cartons per day from their schools. So it presents a really great opportunity for us to begin working with schools in a way that we haven't in the past. Aside from just paper recycling, which is the bulk of what else that they're generating there, it just renewed the conversation that we've been able to have with our schools. And though we haven't been able to implement anything yet, I'll say, it really is just the beginning of those conversations. And one of our districts is considering taking the cost savings from the plastic bottles that they serve their milk in now. When they switch to cartons, they're thinking about reallocating that into other sustainability initiatives that could include district-wide composting. So we really are talking about trickle-down impacts from one decision that we made that will ultimately get us to our goal of 20% by 2020 and 90% by 2030. Next slide. And finally, at our facility, we were experiencing rising staffing costs with the increase in minimum wage and just the challenges that come with staffing a recycling facility, getting people who want to be there and want to be there for the long term. We're always looking at ways that we can make ourselves more efficient. And so the introduction of carton recycling allowed us to have some equipment be installed that shifted a couple of staff people, which are actually not staff people. We work with our local jail, and so we have work release folks come. So it's not that we were reducing employment. It was just saving us money from paying the jail. And so it really allowed us to shift things around a little bit and experience some cost savings as far as staffing goes because of the addition of this equipment. Next slide. So overall, what we've seen is impacts to our long-range vision, that ultimately the 90% by 2030, we're seeing the cartons be marketable as a commodity, which in the past, before we had this new program, were simply going into our landfill or our waste-to-energy facility, where now we're seeing a $60 to $70 per ton revenue from them. And we've been able to get a higher volume through our facility or out of our facility than anyone expected. We're on our 6th load in 7 months, which is significantly more than we understand other facilities have been able to do. And so it's been a great success in that sense. We've committed to carton-focused outreach for 1 year, which basically means that whenever we're out in the community, we really are talking primarily about carton recycling as sort of this new and big thing. And so it's allowed us to focus our efforts and really get people to understand what carton recycling means and if it impacts them. And we continue to have those conversations with the school districts that we haven't had as much success in the past. And we have also seen successes in reducing our staffing costs. And one of the side benefits is that this new equipment has helped improve the quality of our other recyclables just because of new technology in our facility. So it's been a great thing, and we've learned some things in the last 7 months, but overall it has been a really good thing for us. And we'll continue to think in a really open sense about how we introduce new things to our community and what the benefits are, not only to us, but to the community as well. Next slide. And so that's my message that I wanted to share, and I'd be happy to take questions at the end if you have any.
Great. Thank you so much, Kristen. It sounds like the addition of cartons was positive all around. Not only did you add another item to your recycling stream, but you were able to sort of get people excited about recycling again. So thank you for that. And our next speaker is Karen Maynard. And let's see, I'm going to pull up her bio here. Karen is from the Louisville DPW. She studied biology and sustainability at Berea College and recently completed her master's degree through the Global Field Management Program at Miami University. She's worked for the Louisville Metro since 2001, and she spent 16 years as an educator at the Louisville Zoo and transferred to the Department of Public Works Solid Waste Management Division in March 2017. In her role as the Public Education Coordinator for Metro Solid Waste, she shares her passion for reducing waste with the Louisville Metro community. And with that, I will hand it over to Karen.
Thank you. Thanks for that introduction. I'm happy to be presenting today, and I'll be talking about our partnership with the Food Service Packaging Institute and the different positive outcomes we had from that and how that was a catalyst for even more educational outreach programs and platforms. Next slide. So I thought I'd start by giving a little bit of background information because my situation might be a little unique. As she mentioned in my bio, I did spend 16 years as a zoo educator. So this position that I have now, the public education coordinator position, is actually fairly new. It was established in 2014, and one other person has held it, and she moved to another city department, and so I officially got this job just last March of 2017. So since I had didn't really have a background in the solid waste industry, I have learned a lot in the past year, and I still have a lot to learn. But this partnership with the Food Service Packaging Institute was my first major project as a new employee, and it was actually in the works before I even started. Next slide. So just a couple months in, I was approached about this partnership program, and they have these goals for their program that they offer. So adding food service packaging to curbside recycling programs, and then providing a model for other communities. So FPI had already been in contact with our local material recovery facility, and they had already agreed to accept all the listed types of takeout containers, except for foam polystyrene, which of course would have been a great addition, but that hasn't happened. And but they actually didn't change anything. We just sort of called more attention to those takeout containers, but they didn't have to add any equipment or anything like that. Next slide. So as outlined to us, the communications goals are listed here, and they include supporting our communication around curbside recycling with flyer designs, a video, a pop-up banner, and then the digital media campaigns, one of which we had at the launch of the program and another coming as a refresh this fall. Next slide. So the goals were outlined as being measured through the website traffic increase from the initial digital media campaign, and then a social media engagement increase, and to reach more than 10% of residents through those ads. So we did complete the first and third goals, but the second one was a little different because we hadn't done any digital campaigns before, so it was more establishing a baseline than showing an increase. Next slide. So moving right along, by August, we had our MOU signed, and this took a little more time than I expected, mainly because our communication specialist, he scrutinized it a lot, which I actually appreciate, and I've learned a lot from him. And he was a much harder sell on this project. I pretty much just heard, oh, free promotional materials and free advertising, and I'm going to generate excitement in our community about recycling. Yes, I want to do it. But he had more experience that he asked a lot more questions than I did, and which is definitely a good thing. But we eventually came to a conclusion on our MOU and got that signed and moved forward. So they also developed a communications plan, which was laid out as a great example to me also, because I hadn't really seen a full-out plan before, so I've been able to use that as a template for other things. And they suggested that we get a shortened URL for our website, which turned out to be a pretty simple ask, and so we got that. We designed our recycling page, which I'll show you in a second, and they designed a flyer for us to be able to put on that page. And then to officially launch this program and announce it, we planned a press conference. So all this was done in August. And here's I actually have given most of our website for the solid waste part of it a facelift. And I started with the recycling page because for this project, we were going to be driving traffic here, and we needed it to just look a little better and then be able to add that flyer to it. So this is, the left picture is what it was before. So very just wordy and not visual. And then we moved to kind of a more button type of a layout. So when they click on the What Can I Recycle button, it goes to our new flyer that we have. Next slide. Which this is our flyer that they designed for us, and so that's still linked on our website. And then our shortened URL listed there, louisvilleky.gov/recycling. And I also was asked to create a flyer for our bulky item collections. So I actually used that flyer as a design and created my own for bulky items, as shown there. Next slide. So we planned the official kickoff to happen at the close of the Municipal Waste Management Association Fall Summit, which was actually hosted here in Louisville in October. And so the mayor came and he spoke about adding takeout containers to curbside collection, and we kept using the phrase, don't trash your takeout, recycle it, just to kind of get that in people's minds. And we had a group of kids, 2 of those are mine and some of their cross-country team. We were able to get over there to help generate more excitement and have the kids speak about how easy it is to recycle and why they recycle. Next slide. So at this time, once we had that kickoff, the digital media campaign also launched, and this was a Facebook post. And again, you could technically place takeout containers in the recycling already, but we were calling more attention to it, and there was confusion about different things, especially pizza boxes. There's always confusion about that. So it really helped to have this refresh on what's acceptable. And this digital campaign that they did for us went through December, and then they'll do another campaign starting this fall. Next slide. And just kind of as I was learning different ways to engage the public in getting excited about recycling, America Recycles Day was coming up, so I really wanted to do something on my own through social media. So I made this video to highlight our recycling crews and thank our residents for their participation. It's very short. So we also have an educational recycling video that was provided through the FPI partnership. We haven't shared it yet, but we do have plans to. Next slide. So meanwhile, after this launch through the winter and spring, we actually started on another project, which was to launch the Recycle Coach app for our city. Recycle Coach, if you haven't heard of it, is an educational technology company that connects residents with waste and recycling information to help them become better recyclers. So it's just another way to engage residents and another platform that I can use for educational messaging. It includes alerts, reminders, collection and disposal information, and a what goes where search tool, which is pretty neat. So not only is it just a great resource for our residents, but it allows us to use another set of metrics. So for instance, the content page views helps us see which part of that app are viewed the most, and even which items are searched the most as far as what people are confused about maybe on where to put it, how to get rid of it correctly. Next slide. Okay, so this leads us to the present, and I took this opportunity to make some graphs and kind of really dive into some of the numbers that I have now. And so this is unique page views for our website, so just our recycling web page. So you can kind of see for 2017 in October where it spiked up, and that was from the ad campaign. And then for this year in the green, it's looking pretty good just because it's above the past couple of years. But I definitely am watching this now a little bit more closely to see how we can continue to drive people there. Now, I don't always have to have people going to our website because we have Recycle Coach now. So, of course, I'll have new metrics using that app as well. Next slide. And this slide I went ahead and included, even though it's not very exciting. You can kind of see our curbside recycling tonnages have seems to be similar increases and decreases over the course of 2016 and 17, and 2018 hasn't proven to be much different. This is something we're watching since we are trying to get people to recycle takeout containers just to see if there's any increase in the tonnages, but we haven't seen anything so far. Next slide. And another metric that I'm watching is our recycling cart and bin requests. Right now in our city, we have 18-gallon bins that are free, and automatically that's what you get if you're going to recycle. But we do encourage people to purchase the recycling cart that holds a lot more and has the lid to cut down on litter. So, part of our different campaigns are kind of pushing people to go ahead and just purchase that cart. So it looks like our, this includes carts and bin requests, because if someone's not recycling at all, they may request a bin or even have one repaired or replaced. But those requests are up, so that's good. Next slide. sorry. Oh, so in conclusion, so I just wanted to kind of reiterate that this was an ideal first project for me. Being a new employee, I didn't have a lot of experience in a lot of these different things that I had to go through. So I was able to help plan my first press conference to be involved in. I was able to get some educational materials designed for free. The digital ad campaign was great to have. And I was basically getting my feet wet for all kinds of future projects. And of course, our communications goals were met, and now we're going to kind of have to kind of look at what our next goals are going to be. We have this digital media baseline, although I don't know that we're always going to be able to put as much money behind digital media, but it still helps us to see a comparison. And then the last thing is I was able to, as a new employee especially, just strengthen the relationships in different areas. So our communications specialist, he works for all of Public Works, and I'm just in the solid waste division. So I've, over the past year, been able to develop a strong relationship with him to be able to help communicate our different messages, since he has a lot going on, because it's not just solid waste related. Our local MRF, I had a relationship with them, but just kind of seeing how all the different ways that it's important that we keep that contact with them. And the IT department as well, I didn't put on the slide, but as well as our GIS department, it's been exciting to kind of understand how important it is to work with those different departments in Metro. So I've been able to have access to editing my portion of the website. Launching Recycle Coach was a huge collaboration with different departments. And then I've gained access to Google Analytics to help watch some of our different metrics. So pretty much all I've got. So if you guys have any questions, I guess we'll be looking at those at the end.
Terrific. Thank you, Karen. So we do have a few questions I'm seeing coming in, and I'm taking note of them, and we'll go through those at the end. So just a reminder out to those of you listening, if you have any questions, big or small, just feel free to put them into your questions box and send them over. And looks like we have a good list of questions to get us going in a little bit. But first, I'd like to introduce Jim Fry. He is the CEO of RRS. He co-founded RRS in 1986 and serves as its CEO. Jim has over 35 years of expertise in material recovery and solid waste management systems, recycling-based manufacturing, market development, corporate sustainability, and policy and legislation. Jim has utilized his experience to facilitate several collaborative initiatives that connect private industry with public need to improve material recovery. And Jim is going to give an overview of what Renew is. And with that, I will hand the mic over to him.
Thank you, Marissa. Hopefully everybody can hear me well. What you've been experiencing is one of a webinar series, as well as other activities of a program here at RRS that we call Renew. And its focus is to feature these industry collaborations that are very focused on revitalizing and growing recycling in partnership with public agencies and public programs. And if you go to the next slide, we've been working in this capacity, especially for earlier in our last 10 years with the Carton Council and Food Service Packaging Institute that we're featuring today. But we also do that for a wide variety of other industry initiatives. One of those, though, the main features of those initiatives is that they are voluntary on the part of those industry groups on behalf of the particular types of packaging and products that they put in the market, that they put in front of your residents and consumers. And that one main theme that Renew is focused on is a very pro-recycling message. Sort of no ifs, ands, or buts. This recycling system needs to grow. It needs to improve. There are new materials. There are communities that need to improve. There are parts of the generator base within a community, multifamily, single family away from home that need to improve. And Renew is meant to be just a staunch champion for that pro-recycling approach. And more importantly, it's targeted at the highest level of municipal decision makers who actually may have very little to do with the recycling programs themselves, often may not pay a whole lot of attention to it, but they are the people that if they're behind your program, then those programs get lots more community support, they get a lot more engagement, the right kind of resources are dedicated to them. And this is really what Renew is focused on, is helping those mayors, those city council people, those county commissioners, the public works directors, the people that really both control the budgets, control the policy, and the direction and intent to serve the needs of their citizens, and helping them understand that these industries, voluntary industry partnerships, can be a great resource for their communities. And I think you've seen two really good examples of this. And so if you go to the next slide, what we're really trying to emphasize is that these municipal programs, which mayors and city council people and commissioners are in charge of, that the recycling specialists run, they're actually a critical part of the supply chain for recyclables, here in the US and globally. And most of you, I assume, are really well aware that this is a very a time of critical need for a pro-recycling message. They're very volatile secondary material markets. You have the national sword in China and the upheaval that is causing, the processing costs that are impacted, the longer term trends of changing the material mix with the digital economy and the Amazon effect, as we call it, for the increased cardboard. It's reflected and putting pressure on the municipal level for these decision makers. There are tighter budgets. Some of the contractual arrangements with the recycling industry have to change, and some curbside programs are at risk, or certain parts of the material stream are at risk in those programs. And you heard one of the speakers talk about film itself, and at one point you take it, you can never, and it's very difficult to stop taking it. And that's really the philosophy of Renew, is let's find out what the best ways are to recover these materials, put together the right recycling facilities, collection programs, communication programs, which you've seen some great examples of, and have those be programs that your mayors and elected officials are both proud of but highly engaged in. And we feel that in this time of critical need, that the timing is truly right for this collaboration engagement between these voluntary industry partnerships and communities, and that's where some of this next generation of excitement and next generation of recycling can be sourced. And that's really what Renew, powered by RS, does, is specifically make that connection. If you go to the next slide. So a couple things from a mission point of view, that positive outlook on recycling, the interest in the industry-led collaborative programs, and the linkage to the economic benefits of recycling for local communities as both a link in the value chain for recyclables, but also as a source of jobs, of economic development, of when you look at it from a circular economy perspective, of some even economic opportunity and room for innovation in all kinds of ways. This is kind of what is being nurtured through Renew. If you go to the next slide. And so Renew, basically, you've seen some of what it does already. Working in alliance with the industry initiatives, a very broad range of them, it helps them understand how they can communicate their industry goals around recycling, increasing participation, increasing recovery levels, making more recycled PET or paper or cartons available for the market, and how to get access to municipal decision makers to say, this is important to us, how to set the stage for public-private collaboration, and also how to do it. We heard in the items that you just, the slides you just saw, about MOUs, about letters of intent, about grants, about templates. All of these are part of the language of public-private collaboration. And we heard also about one step where a senior staff member took a while to review an agreement. And that's actually not unusual because historically, these kinds of public-private agreements are not very common. Fundamentally, we want Renew to support everyone's understanding of how these can be done well, how these letters of intent, these sharing of resources, these joint public-private initiatives can really go smoothly, and you can do more of them. You see opportunities for event engagement. And what we mean by that is that Renew actually is at conferences and events like the U.S. Conference of Mayors annual conference, their legislative conference, the National Association of Counties, the rural area group of the counties, the large urban area group of the counties. We've also heard mentioned the municipal waste management officials, that is a subgroup of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And these are national platforms where groups of mayors from across the country get together, groups of commissioners get together, and they often look at their peer communities. And what we're doing is, what Renew does is introduce this pro-recycling message in an environment where it's not actually talked about that much. They may hear from a few waste haulers about the importance of good contracting. They may hear from some technology companies about things like waste to energy or pyrolysis or plasma. They may hear from groups about litter issues and marine debris, but what they don't hear is a very simple pro-recycling message. And that's really what Renew is doing in these events, and promoting that, with flyers and background pieces and targeted mailings and outreach both before and after, connecting that mayor with their staff, allowing that mayor to take a postcard they may have received about any ones of the types of programs you see here, and handing it to their staff and saying, hey, I want to see our community do this. That's the dynamic we're working to create, and we have seen created. It includes the webinar services that we see today. You'll see that the renew.org website is available for links to different programs, so that the recycling professional can easily sort of shop the opportunities. And then most importantly, actually measuring the impact of these efforts, so that, like any good company, these industry alliances, as well as public agencies, need to understand the return on their investment in outreach and recycling programs, in the goals that they have through data analytics reporting. And then we know that some of these groups have very specialized services and programs, and you've actually seen two of examples of these in both Kent County and Louisville, Kentucky. And that's really where some of the programs actually use Renew services to make sure they're delivering exactly the right solution to communities, solutions that they can use. We go to the next slide. And so the public sector is really the beneficiary of this, where the kinds of services and benefits really help public agencies develop proactive recycling messages. Their decision makers get behind it. I think you saw the mayor featured in the Louisville event, connecting and supporting the implementation of recycling with innovative partnerships with effective and proven industry programs. Some communities, just like these in the webinar, are also part of conference panels. In addition to the webinar, articles, blogs, other ways to present your program, and both serve as a professional development opportunity, but also in a way can circle back through your digital media to further reinforce the credibility of your program, even inside your community, amongst your community leaders and your recycling champions locally. Those are some of the threads or the ripple effects that can be created through Renew. Next slide, please. And so right now, we're featuring two long-standing partners in Renew, the Carton Council and the Food Service Packaging Institute. RS is heavily invested in growing this service, and we're excited by the direction we're getting from groups like the mayors and the counties, because they actually really would like to see organized pro-recycling, high quality offerings for communities across the country. And really that's what Renew is about, and what these industry alliances are about. Next slide. And I too appreciate the opportunity to speak, and let's move on to questions. Thank you, Marissa.
Great. Well, thank you for that great overview of Renew. And we do have some questions here. So in the last few minutes, we'll dive right into those. The first one, also touching on a point that Jim raised, is for Karen. And the question is, with the recent issues on China's plastic import ban, has your recycling processor had any problems finding homes for the plastic clamshells, cups, and is the plastic being shipped to regional markets?
Well, I can't. I know our prices are down, but they have definitely not indicated that they're going to, want to change anything about what we accept. Our local MRF only ships domestically, so in a way that has helped. Although I know the different markets are stretched. But keeping that good relationship with them, we're definitely talking about that a lot and seeing how it impacts us. We are run by a waste management board, and one of our contacts with our local MRF is on the advisory committee, so she continues to keep us in the loop on what's going on with all of that.
Great, thanks. Kristen, a question for you. Have you noticed an increase in recycling tonnages after you added cartons, whether it was from the addition of cartons or the excitement that the campaign raised?
We did. It was really interesting. We have to be very careful as the processor, not as the hauler, to not overstep our boundaries and speak too directly to the waste haulers' customers. So we try to communicate as effectively as we can to recyclers to share really important information with them. And we found that people actually held on to their recyclables for the 3 weeks. Many people did held on to their recyclables for those 3 weeks that we were shut down, and voluntarily. And then we had so much catch up to do afterwards, in addition to the additional material that we were processing. So our goal is to process 40,000 tons of recyclables in 2018, and we are well on our way to doing that. We certainly did not see any decline in tonnage after installing the equipment. Certainly, we're on almost our 6th load of cartons that are going out to market, and each of those loads is 40 to 45,000 pounds. So that's material that we had not been able to process in the past. So I think the excitement, just the general excitement and interest in recycling again, helped us to increase our tonnage this far in the year.
Great. And a quick follow-up question. Do the plastic bags create processing issues at your MRF? And do you have a local market for bags?
Yeah, they cause us the same challenges that any other single-stream recycling facility is caused by them. We have paper screens, and one of the other pieces of that 3-week shutdown, while we were installing the carton equipment, we also installed a cardboard screen, which the bags also get tangled in. So yes, we have the same processing and operational challenges with bags that every other single-stream facility has. But that I guess to keep on the theme of working with community partners, we're working with our local retail, grocery type of retail, to really beef up the message to use reusable bags, but also to bring any plastic bags back to the retail stores, and they are able to market them. We have a really challenging time marketing our film. So getting the buy-in and the interest in having the retail locations see the value in taking those bags back is something that we're working on and building up in our community for the good of everything, for our processing facility as well as the recyclability of that film.
Okay. So Karen, a question for you here. Working with our communications department is difficult. How do you recommend improving that relationship so they can prioritize recycling?
Well, I will say the very first thing I did when I was hired is I instituted a twice a month meeting with our communications specialist. Now he has a team. There's other teams of communication specialists under Public Works, but he's the one for solid waste. So yeah, meeting with him regularly has helped. We jokingly call him a bottleneck because he takes a very long time to get things through, and he's, looks at everything super closely, which is important. But having that constant communication that's just set on our calendars has really helped me be able to get things through that other staff were kind of shocked at how well it has helped. So.
Great. And let's see. I wonder if we have time for maybe one more question on here. One was just a clarification of the website. So it's renew-recycling.org. And so this one is for Jim. It says, I'm a recycling coordinator, so I'm already pro-recycling. So how does Renew's pro-recycling voice differ from the pro-recycling work I'm already doing?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we anticipate that folks in your position would be that champion. And what we're trying to do is lower the barriers between your work and those important people that you report to, that if you're lucky, you actually have your leadership in your city or county actively engaged and listening to you. Your city council people, your mayor, your county commissioner. Our experience across the country is that that's not that frequent. And when you talk about, trying to organize for and secure commitments of resources for capital, for improving your recycling program, what Renew is about is that pro-recycling message to your bosses, to your mayors, to your city council people, to your commissioners. We want them to hear it amongst their peers, where they might be talking about many other very important issues, taxes, roads, potholes, etc. And we want them to have a brief discussion about their recycling programs, and then come back from those events and have their staff then reach out to you and say, what more can we do? Or, here, I've seen this presentation on 5 industry partnerships. I know we've done 2. When are we going to do number 3, number 4, number 5? Those are the types of things that we're trying to encourage. We're trying to essentially help pave the way for your further success.
All right, great. I hope that answer was helpful for everybody. And with that, I think we can go ahead. I think there's one more slide on here. Is there a next slide on here? Okay, so what I wanted to just bring up again is our next webinar is the second part in this 2-part summer series. And it will be coming up, I believe, at the end of July or early August, and we will have that information up on our website. And it's a very exciting topic, especially with some of the discussions here about end markets. I know that it's going to be an issue that's probably of interest to everybody, is MRF to markets. So don't forget to check back in for that webinar. And thank you for joining. And again, a recording of today's webinar will be available on the website in the next few days. With that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.